All right, so let's talk about routing and specifically how Angular implements routing. So let's see, did we install ng routing? I forget. Mongoose, Angular, do we? Oh, there it is, Angular. We have Angular, we don't have Angular routing. Okay, let's install Angular routing. We'll say npm install Angular route. And let's see, Angular route, there it is. So routing is it's a fairly complex mechanism. It has its own Angular module, right, as a separate file, which we are going to install. I'm just going to copy Angular route, and I'm going to put it under the vendor. Public vendor Angular, and I'll just paste it in there. There it is. And I'm going to load it. I'm going to load it in. I'm going to load it in. So where are we going to load this in? So right now we have the login page all by itself, right, as a standalone Angular application. But actually, right, the login page is going to be only one of many different views, right? Meaning we're going to navigate to the login page and then navigate to the registration page and then navigate to the profile page. Yes. But the login page is just one of many different views. Yes. So it by itself, it shouldn't be a standalone Angular application. Right? It should only be one of many views of a bigger Angular application. Yes. So we're going to refactor this to meet that criteria. Right? We're going to go back to the assignment, and we're going to move most of the content that we have currently in the login page. We're going to move it to a landing page, right? The index page. The index page is going to be our wrapper that is going to be hosting our Angular application. Right now, our index page is showing the landing page that we copied from Bootstrap. Yes, it's the let's see what it looks like. Currently, it looks like this, right? Right, that's our home page. Yes. So this also is going to be yet just one of many views, right? There's going to be the home view. There's going to be the login view. The profile view. There's going to be several views that we're going to be navigating between them, right? So let's change this a little bit. Let's rename this. We'll call it home. It's going to be just one of several views. And our index page, what we're going to do is we're going to move most of what we did for the login page, including, let's see, the Angular. Let's move that out of here. I've removed it from there. Instead, I'm going to put it in the index page. The index page is going to be has quite too much in here. Let's empty it from remove a lot of the stuff that we don't need from here. This is from the page that we got from Bootstrap. So let's remove a lot of the things. We don't need the icon. We do need the Bootstrap. We don't really need the theme. Well, yeah, we'll leave that because we'll need it. We'll need it for the home page. We won't need the nav bar, so let's remove the nav bar. We won't need all those examples, and let's empty most of the body. Oh wow, it's big. Where's the body? Okay, let's remove that. Okay, there it is. So we have a mostly empty index page, right? If we load the index page now, it's just empty. There's nothing in it, right? We are going to put in the libraries that we need. We'll need the Angular library. Yes. What else do we need? We need from the login page. We'll need the declaration of the WAM, right? as an application. We'll just remove that. Let's put it here. What else do we need? We probably need this app.js in there, right? Let's remove that. And that will declare it right here. Very good. What else do we need? Let's see. So this is going to be the placeholder of our application. It's complaining. Let's see what it's complaining about. Console, bootstrapman. We don't really need any of that. All right, we don't need any of that. I think it's these files down here that's complaining about. Let's remove all these. Anything else? Emulation, we don't really need that. And not that. There we go. Certainly we don't need IE. Okay, there we go. All right, so we have a blank slate, right, for an index page that is going to be our single page that we will never navigate away from, right? We're going to come here in this index page, and we're never going to leave this index page. So how do we do that? What we're going to do is that we're going to declare one div as our placeholder for all our content. Right? And we're going to inject into that content either the login page or the registration page or the profile page, depending as we navigate. As we click and drag, right, and we interact, we're going to provide the navigation mechanism by injecting the content in here dynamically. Yes? Okay. So how do we do that? Well, to do that trick, we're going to need not only Angular, we're going to need a new library, the Angular routing library. We're going to need the Angular routing library. Okay? Everybody okay? Right? It's going to be responsible for navigating from one place to the next. It's going to allow us to configure in one single place what the routing will be. Right? All right, so let's do that. Let's we can now in our application, we're going to have to declare our application to now depend on a new module that we're going to be using, the routing module. Right? We're going to say that our module, our application, it's going to depend on this new module that we're going to be using, the routing module. Right? It's going to have all the capability of being able to navigate from one place to the next. Okay, and that module has a name, and it's called the ng-route module. Right? That's the name of the module. Right? If there it is. Here's where it's being declared. Right, so somebody's using Angular, see that, to declare a module called ng-route, just like we declare the module WAM app. Yes? Somebody else declared a module called ng-route that has no dependencies. So ng-route doesn't depend on anything, but we're going to depend on the ng-route module. So in anything that the ng-route module declares, if the ng-route module has controllers and whatever it declares, we're going to have access to all those things. Okay? One of the things that the ng-route module declares is an attribute, a brand new attribute called the ng-view attribute. Now, this is how the router, the centralized controller, is going to know where to inject all the content. Right? This is how it's going to know where to inject it. Right? And now we need to configure it. We need to tell it if we click this, we should go there. If we do that, we should go there. Right? So let's configure it. Let's configure the router. Let's go back to app, and now we can configure it. And the way we can configure our module is by using now app.config. So config is a function, it's a native Angular function that allows us to configure all sorts of things. Right? There's a lot of things that can be configured. We're currently only interested in configuring the routing, right? So the way configuration works is that we need to provide it a function where we're going to do the configuration, right? So we're going to create a function called configuration. You can call it whatever you want. It's going to look for a function called configuration, okay? Where we're going to do the actual configuration. This is where the code is going to happen. And this happens before anything else. Before anything is rendered, before any controllers exist, or before Angular is ready to accept any events or be able to interact with any users, the configuration happens before anything else, right? So by the time we're doing the configuration, there are no HTML, it doesn't know anything about any HTML, doesn't know anything about any controllers, no users whatsoever. There's no data, right? We're configuring the application. Nothing has happened yet. So in this configuration, we need to ask it, or we need to tell it what is it that we want to configure. And the way it's configured is that each module has its own configurators, right? If you have an animation module, it'll have some things to configure about the animation. Or if you have a video module, it has its own configuration. If you have a routing module, it will have its own routing configuration, right? And all these modules provide their own configuration providers. Okay. In this case, ng-route provides a routing provider. Routing provider or route provider? I think it's route provider. Okay. Right, which is an object that that's going to allow us to configure all the routes. That's what we're trying to configure, right? The route provider is going to allow us to declare what should happen when. It's going to allow us to tell it, hey, if you see this on the URL, right? If this happens, this is what you should render. Right, this is where you should go. This is where you should navigate. Okay. It allows you to configure routes. If you see the following, on the URL, you should render the following HTML. The following content should be rendered. Okay. Say I want to render the login page. Right? If you see login, that's what should render. Okay? So that if you see login, and that didn't work. Wait, what? Did I miss something? A slash? It's looking for... Ooh, I spelled it wrong. Login. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Template URL. There it is. Right, so it's loading the login page, even though the index page doesn't have any content. Notice that the index page is empty. Right? If I look at the page source, this is what's coming from the server, right? Notice that the server says, my div is empty, there's nothing in it. So the content is not coming from the server. Well, not on this query. Not on this query. It's coming as a separate query, right? If you look at the network here, we refresh, right? Notice that there it is. So this is what's happening. Notice what's happening, right? The index page gets loaded first, right? And the index page, you can see the HTML is empty. See that? There's nothing in it. Then Angular is loaded. All the routing is loaded. Your app.js is loaded. It gets configured. loads Bootstrap, all the themes. And then, for some reason, logging is requested. See that? Logging is requested at a later time. What's happening here is that once you can do the configuration, right? You're telling Angular, say, hey, Angular, start listening for the URL. If you see that pattern, that URL pattern on the URL, go fetch me login.html in a separate AJAX call. Right? In a separate AJAX call, it goes and fetches login. And where's it going to put it? In that empty HTML. If we look at we inspect here, and we actually look at the DOM. If we look at the DOM, notice that there's ngView, right, which was empty when it came from the server, didn't it? But now we see that it's full of stuff in there. See that? It's got a meta, it's got a title, it's got Bootstrap, or again, loaded Bootstrap. See that? Right? It's loading the styles again. It has its own container. It has its own controller. Right? It's got its own controller. So notice that it loads Bootstrap again, the style sheet, even though we had already loaded it. We had already loaded Bootstrap. So now Bootstrap is being loaded twice. Right? Once by index, right? And again by login. Something is wrong, right? We need to go back to login and tell it that it no longer is a full-blown HTML document, right? It's only a snippet, right? It's no longer the main page. Index is the main page. And it's being retrieved at a later time. So it doesn't really need to be a full-blown HTML document, right? It's only a partial. Oftentimes these are referred to as partials, right? Not HTML documents, but they're referred to as templates, or they're referred to as partials. That's a very common term, right? So now if we reload the login page, and we go back and refresh it, that looks a little better. There's our ngView, which was originally empty, but our router injected the content of the login page, which is just a container fluid, the div, right, and everything else. Everybody okay? Yes. Right. Yeah. Let's talk about that. Right. So the way this is working is that Angular and many of the MVC libraries out there, right? What they're doing is that they are hijacking, a very stable, very mature piece of technology that has been around for quite a while, right? Of handling the hash. The hash, as we saw on our examples, right, allows us to create links that are local to the page, right? That allow us to navigate in the same page, right? Without ever leaving the page, right? This is a very common technique to create like table of contents, right? Where you create at the top, you create many hyperlinks, right? And those hyperlinks refer to content on the same page, so that from the top, if you click on the table of content, the hash changes, yes, and then navigate you to different sections on the same page, yes. And this has been around forever, right? I think I have an example of that somewhere here. Bootstrap, maybe? No. I think maybe here, maybe towards the end. Yeah, I think it's this one. Anchors, is it this one? Replace, blah, blah, blah. This motor, no, that's not it. Separate window. Maybe this one. That's not it. Which one? Oh, this one. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, so this is an example, a very simple example, right, where we have anchors that as you click, right, it just stays in the same page, right? It doesn't navigate away, right? And the way it's implemented is by at the top having hyperlinks that start with hashes. See that? And browsers interpret this as saying, oh, you want to stay in the same page, you just want to navigate to a different section on the same page. Right? This is a technique that has been around forever. So what these MVC libraries have done is that they hijack, right? Well, that has a negative connotation. They extend, they enhance the behavior of the hash technique, right? By using JavaScript. Right? They tell the browser, hey browser, instead of what you normally do with a hash, right, instead of doing that, notify me of any changes of the hash, because I am going to override the behavior, right? The default behavior. Whenever the hash changes, I'm going to use the hash as a lookup, as an index, right, into a configuration file that says that if I see this in the hash, I will do this. If I see this other thing in the hash, I will do something else. Yes? Right? And that's exactly what's happening here. Right? Angular, it listens for changes in the hash, and if it sees those things, it then goes into its configuration. There it is, and it says, if it matches a pattern, it says, what should I do? Well, here it's configured to say, go fetch me the following physical HTML document, right? And then inject it into that placeholder, the ng view. Make sense? Everybody okay? All right. And similarly, we can extend this even further. We can say, we can string together several configurations. We could say, when instead you see register, then load the following URL. Register.html. I forget, did we do register.html? I don't remember. So if I say register, maybe not. Register. It is there. Why aren't you rendering? ng view. Register. Oh, there it is. I hadn't refreshed the page. So there it is. This register and this login. So now I can navigate between the two, without actually leaving index. Right? I am stuck in index forever. Right? And even the back button and the forward button work just fine. Right? So the common classical problem of the back button in dynamic web applications is gone. Right? Usually we have to take good care of how do we navigate back and forwards using classical navigation in dynamic web applications, but that concern is gone. We still have a little bit of concern. We'll come back to it a little bit later. Let's see. Notice that in the register page, we still have the issue that the register page has it's a full-blown HTML document. See that? We need to demote all our pages so that they're no longer full-blown HTML documents. Right? They're only snippets. So let's go back to the register page and let's demote it and say, nope, sorry, you're no longer a full-blown HTML document. You're only a subset, right, of something bigger. Right? So if we refresh, notice that register looks still the same, right, because all the libraries that it depends on have been already loaded. Right, the bootstrap and whatnot. Everybody okay? We're still okay? Same thing for the profile. We haven't defined the profile yet, so let's declare that. Let's declare this and we say profile. and load the profile page. Let's see, let's load. And indeed, we have the profile page. We'll need to demote the profile page as well. Right, let's remove any of its dependencies. Okay, loads the same way. Yeah. But notice that I've been doing it all from the URL. Right? Typically, you want to do this from clicking the hyperlinks, right? Clicking the buttons and whatnot. Yes. So we can do that. We can certainly do that. Especially, for instance, the way we would get to the profile page is by logging in. You log in, if the user is correct, is valid, we navigate to the profile page. That's where we left off early. That's what originally, this was the intent, right, of creating all this navigation in the first place, right? Wanted to navigate from the login page to the profile page, right? All this only to go in from the login to the profile page. So let's go back to our original intent, right, of navigating from one to the other.